One of the things I enjoyed when I was in seminary was we had a tradition that every Thursday before dinner, after evening prayer, we had guys would give their vocation story, and I realized that every guy had a different story, different family background, different circumstances that led them to seminary. Some saw it when they were really young, some were later in life. And so with that being said, realizing the Lord calls us from many different areas, many different personalities, many different experiences, talents. We all have a different story. So here's just a little bit of mine. When I was 17 years old, it was a pretty heavy time, a lot of struggles with our family and personally, and just, some of that too, just being in high school, trying to figure out who you are. And my pastor at the time wanted us to go on a retreat before getting confirmed. I was not excited about that. I was in high school, and the thought of kind of a wasted weekend is kind of how I viewed it. But I think I was kind of whittled down a lot just by the hardships of personally and family and just life in general, that I just kind of surrendered to it, and I went with really little understanding of what I was doing or why I was going, just kind of fulfilling a requirement so I could get this checkbox of confirmation. So I went on this retreat, and it's hard to put into words, because the moment in which I had what I would call kind of a conversion or a reversion was so normal. There was nothing dramatic about it. I was sitting in the room, and it was kind of one of those talks, a lot of testimonies or talks, and I don't remember who it was or what they said, and it was right after lunch. I think half the room was kind of falling asleep, just kind of like the post-lunch fatigue, and it just hit my heart. God loved me. God loved me. And it wasn't just a concept, it was a heartfelt, very palpable, something that to this day I can go back to that moment. It actually kind of sounds Protestant, like a born again moment. Like it was April 9th, 2005. I'll never forget it the rest of my life. And I go back to it, and the Lord continues to give me life from it. It's unmistakable to me that the Lord loves me. And I just the very thought of it or bringing it up in prayer brings joy to my heart. And in that same weekend, I remember walking back to my room one of the nights, and the thought just popped in my head, you should become a priest. Again, to say I was ignorant of what a priest was is an understatement. I don't even think I realized where priests came from. I guess what I'm saying is it didn't occur to me that a priest actually was a real person that made a choice and responded to a call. I don't know in my younger years if I thought like just a big bird, just big stork dropped a priest on the church or what. I don't know what I thought when I was sitting in Mass seeing this person, but it just didn't connect to me that was something that could be a decision. So I kind of ignored it. I was in a good place spiritually. I was very consoled by God's love, but that thought just was a bit too foreign for me. Anyway, went back to school, returned to life, small town, small public high school. A couple weeks later, that thought came back in my head: you should become a priest. And I just kind of kicked it back into left field, thanks but no thanks, God. I kind of have plans already. Long story short, it just kept coming back more and more frequently. Finally, my senior year, which would have been that next fall, about 6 months later, I finally met with my pastor. I said, Father, we got to talk. I have so many questions. And we did. And that helped me a lot to just know that a priest is so much more than just 1 hour a week when I see him. It's so much more than that. And so that was an important step for me. I went off to college, and it was a Catholic university. And there I actually met some seminarians. It was the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, and I met some seminarians. That was another step for me. I saw them and I thought, yeah, this could be something. So anyway, I continue to discern. There's quite a bit more of that aspect of it, but I finally came to a point where I was praying in adoration on campus, and I did it for like 2 weeks straight, just with that very intentional purpose of, is priesthood something that I should be open to? And every time I thought about the priesthood in prayer, peace and joy came to my heart. And I knew after those couple weeks that, God saying, this is what I'm calling you to, why wait? And so I met with the rector of the seminary there, met with the vocations director from the Diocese of Green Bay. I went through all the process, and long story short, I entered halfway through my freshman year of college, and I continued through there. Then I went to Mundelein Seminary down by Chicago, and was ordained a priest in 2014, and I thank God for His goodness. Freely you have received, freely give. I feel like my whole priesthood is nothing generous on my part. It's simply, freely you have received, freely give. I know who I was before God called me, and I know how much I was searching, and He called me. And all I can say with the rest of my life is, I love you too, to the Lord, and pray that He can bear fruit that will last. So God bless you all.
A few years ago, while I was pastor at Resurrection Parish in Green Bay, the Saturday afternoon confession spot was filled. It sort of surprised me that so many people were coming to confession. And it also taught me an important lesson. There were people who came on a regular basis. There were some people for whom it had been maybe a once or twice a year thing. And some people also for whom it had been 20, 30, 40 years. I realized as I would be there in the confessional, whether they were behind the screen or sitting in front of me face to face, either way, heart to heart, that I was seeing people at their best, even though they thought I was seeing them at their worst. Yeah, they brought their sins to my ear, more importantly to God's mercy, like I have to bring my sins to the ear of another priest who hopefully will be compassionate to me. But they also brought their faith, their honesty, their humanity, their very real struggles. Most people whose confessions I listen to use that word, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I struggle with, and then you or I fill in the blanks. Just their struggle over and over again must please God greatly, that they don't throw in the towel, that they don't give themselves permission to just forget about it and do what they please. That they over and over again trust in God's mercy, compassion, and tender understanding for them. This is how I understand the privilege of priesthood in bearing the weight of people's struggles. The same is true around deathbeds. I used to think I'd be too frightened to be with someone when they were dying. Get me out of the hospital for sure. But I found it to be beautiful. Christians don't die like the movies tell us they die. Rage against the dark night. I've seen Christians for almost 34 years as a priest face death with curiosity, with deep faith, with a kind of eagerness to see Jesus, with a trust that he's going to be there on the other side of their last breath, their last heartbeat, to take care of them, to heal and forgive, to bring them to life again. They really believe the truth of the resurrection. That helps me to carry the weight of dying, of facing death. And it's true so often for families as well. There's situations where young people die suddenly, or a person may die at their own hand. Even then, families, survivors, loved ones, stunned and overwhelmed, they're so honest. They rage, they scream. How could God do this? They ask their questions. Where is God in all of this? How could heaven be better than my loved one being here on earth to raise her children, to live out his marriage? In all this honesty, this humanity, this humility, I see holiness. I see how good people are. It's true. The world is filled with unsung heroes. And as a parish priest, I have a front row seat to be with them, to witness their faith, to gently, carefully, maybe just by being there and keeping my mouth shut, maybe by a word or two, certainly by the sacraments, hopefully by a tear or a hug, to bring Christ to all of that as well. That's how I bear the weight of the struggles, the losses, the sins of humanity, by seeing Jesus in them and hoping they see Jesus in me too.
In my life, and even in the younger years, I had 3 uncles who were priests. I, as growing up, didn't think I'd be a priest, and I'm a late vocation. I was ordained in my 40s, and I think it evolved through what God called me to do. What's interesting about this is that I was going through a lot of different things like foster care, different types of things in my life, but I always felt I needed to do more. Maybe God wanted me to do more. I remember sitting at Mass one day, at Mass, because I go to Mass every Sunday, and I said, maybe I could be a priest, and checked with the vocation department, asked them, called another priest friend that I knew to be able to see if this would work for me. We prayed a lot about it, and I went to the vocation director, went into the priesthood, and never been happier. I think someone who really kind of helped me be a priest is a priest by the name of Father Carr. Father Marty Carr was a priest for the Diocese of Green Bay, and I knew him when he was a deacon. And what's interesting about how God's plan is, he had his first Mass at Roncalli High School, and I was at Roncalli High School at his first Mass. And then through the years, we always kind of stayed in contact, and when I thought about being a priest a little bit more, I went and spoke with him. We prayed every week for a few months to see how that went. And through that, I did become a priest. What I think God's plan was I was at his first Mass. I had gone through seminary, become a priest, and then we were still friends, of course. And just before Father Marty passed away, I came by on a Saturday night just for no reason, stopped on by. They said he hadn't had Mass today. And he had Mass like almost every day, I think every day of his priesthood. And there's no priest here, and he couldn't do priest. He was too ill. I did Mass that evening, and he died that night. And to be at his first Mass and last Mass, I think was something that God intended. I think the joy that I have in being a priesthood, of course, is the Mass. I do believe that it's really being in people's lives, though. You know, when you could be in all aspects of their lives, from the baptisms to the first communions, reconciliations, you go on to confirmation, you go to the weddings and the funerals, the anointing of the sick. There's just so many aspects you can be in. So I think I have besides the Mass itself and the Eucharist, is the joy with being with the people of God. I think a challenge, like with most priests, is balance. Trying to make sure that you can do all the pastoral things that you need to do. You have a few administrative things to be able to do, and then to have your prayer life, your health, making sure your emotional set is all good. So the balance is that. I also think too is that at times it's really important that we just understand that we have to just always know it's God's church. It's Christ's church. You know, He's got this, and if we think we have to do everything for everybody every single day, it's probably going to not be helpful, and that can be a little draining at least on my vocation. In people's difficult moments, I believe it is a gift by God for me to be there. When I go in and anoint someone, or when I'm going in through a difficult time, they do not call a plumber, a carpenter, or a teacher. They call a priest. So first of all, I'm gifted to be there, and I don't take that for granted. Secondly, is that I can be very compassionate and empathetic, but I give it to God. God's the one who's going to help them through this suffering. I'm just almost like a walk to Emmaus, the person that I could just walk with them through this very difficult time. It's also very important that I know that God's got this, and I don't need to take on that burden. He will do that. But I think that trust comes with time. It also comes with just being real with them, being transparent. I talk about some of the challenges I've had. It's being real with them and drawing that relationship. Relationships take time, and so that's another thing that I watch a little bit, is you can't just come up to someone nowadays and just say, okay, you're a priest or you're whatever, and I'm going to trust you completely. So I allow that relationship to happen, so be able to have that trust, which I appreciate very much, and then help lead them to Christ. If people ask me if they have a plan, if they have a purpose, I say yes. The next question they have is, what is it? Well, that's always a challenge, because every part of God's plan has a purpose. And I think what sometimes people get confused about, I try to tell them, is be patient. And I use my example. When I graduated from St. Norbert College, I expected to be a business person. I have a business degree in management and finance. I was going to go up there. I was going to have a family. I was going to have children, and had it all figured out. Well, God's plan took some time to evolve. So I needed to continue on with that plan. Be patient with our Lord. Just understand that if it's a good thing to do, if it's of the Lord, do it, and it will reveal itself to you. People tell me, as far as the Catholic Church goes, I'm kind of a glass half full person. I see great things. Something that I think has happened, and we would never expected this pandemic. The pandemic has been challenging for a lot of people. But I think with that, my hope is that there's more of an understanding of the need to be together. But we need to be together, not at a Packer game, we can, or a sports thing. We need to be together as family, as a Catholic family. And that need now is so inside each of us that I think it's just going to be evolved into a wonderful, solid Catholic church. As I mentioned, God's got this. We just have to go along with the plan. But I see great things for the Catholic Church in the future. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
I guess I've always enjoyed young people. Even for a number of years, I was asked to always take a newly ordained when I was a pastor, first in Marinette and then at Holy Cross all those years until things changed. We weren't ordaining very many guys anymore. And so I liked that part of it, but I also liked, doing things with young people, whether it was school masses, visiting the classrooms. And when we were in Marinette, we all took a turn. We had about 3 or 4 priests at that point. And, they took care of the 8th grades and the 7th grade. And so you'd visit them once a week in their classrooms. And it was really, really a lot of fun. And I had a certain concept of how to do it, because all the years I was at Xavier for 7 years, I ran all of the retreats. And when I was at Marinette, I had a conviction that I could do some stuff with the high school kids. And the way I always approached it was that I feel that you have to trust the young people and you have to put them in charge. And when I got to Holy Cross, Jan and Ken Vandehei worked with me because they agreed the same thing. The best thing that happens with youth ministry is peer ministry. They really don't want to listen to me. It's by accident they do. But they do listen to one another. And so that was really the key to our program. I know when I was up in Marinette, then we started having retreats at Camp Unalaya, which is up at Chute Pond. And they were a good experience. And what we did is we tried to bring the kids together. We're at Marinette Catholic Central and the kids were at Marinette High. And there were two good-sized schools, not very big, but you know, it was really a good experience because those kids knew each other, but they were going to different schools. And the way I approached it always was to talk to the kids that were in the Catholic high school and say, you got to be leaders. We're investing a lot of money in you. And if you're not going to be leaders, then we're not going to invest any more money in you. And they said, well, why do we have to go this? We have religion classes at school. I said, no, now you're going to do the teaching. And it worked. So, you know, I guess as I look back on it, I've always enjoyed working with kids. They're so honest and so trusting. I guess that's why I enjoy young people. When I was retired and then I got going up to Bear Creek and Clintonville, that's what I tried to do. Every week I'd drive up to Bear Creek or Clintonville, wherever the Mass was, and have Mass with the kids in the grade school. It was a small grade school. I don't think we ever had 80 kids in this whole school. But it was so good, and it was enjoyable to come up and, you know, have the little things and to do the things with them. So, you know, I guess I look on that always as a learning experience for myself. You know, I enjoy having First Communion with the kids. Why? Because it looks inside myself. What do I believe about the Eucharist? You know, there was a period of time when I had too many Masses, I will say that. On an average week, I had 14 Masses. And that went on for quite a few years. And you get kind of in a bad rut. And yet, when you'd have First Communion Mass, the eyes would light up and the kids were excited and they wanted to receive communion. All of a sudden it throws you back and you ask those questions. Well, what do I really believe? And, you know, how is the real presence real? So I guess young people, and I really think that we have to do those kind of things. We have to create the opportunities for young people to minister to one another. You know, that's just what it is.
I walked in, there she was, and family was there with her. And I sat down, and it wasn't planned in my mind. It was almost like the family disappeared, and I just had a chance to visit with a woman that I've learned to admire and respect deeply. We talked about life and illness, what she was feeling. I asked her to imagine in her mind a scene from the Passion of the Christ, where there was a thief who was good alongside of Jesus, who felt trapped, helpless, in pain. By turning his head just a bit, he could see another man trapped, helpless, and in pain. That other man's name was Jesus Christ. And I just said, what you have, what you're experiencing, is not fair. It certainly is not God's will. But when you feel, especially, maybe in the middle of the night, and the lights are off, and you feel very trapped and very hopeless, turn your head just a bit, if not physically, at least in your heart, and see the man alongside of you. And just say, Jesus, let's go through this together. And I said, by you joining your experience to his, you turn this unfairness, this disease, into a powerful blessing for many people. You merge your hurt with his and turn what is simply unfortunate and tragic into something wondrous and good. I said, I want you to know the truth. Sitting with you blessed me far more than I blessed you.